So as Nathaniel progressed in learning classical music on the double bass, we noticed in our household, which we knew very little about classical music, but we did notice that he became totally consumed with music. Come in, go to his room, music all night long. And then he went to high school, played in the orchestra at the high school. My brother was a great actor. You know, you could today ask him about Shakespeare and he could quote you Romeo and Juliet with no problem. My brother can sing, and he plays just about every instrument there is. Then he had the opportunity to go to college, and he received a scholarship to go to Ohio University. And he was okay with that, you know, scholarship, he earned it, he worked for it. But it wasn't really where he wanted to be, because Mr. Moon, his junior high school teacher, realized that he couldn't continue to teach Nathaniel. He had to make a referral for Nathaniel to go to the Cleveland Music Settlement. And that's where he met Mr. Harry Barnoff. And Mr. Barnoff worked with him and worked with him and worked with him until he became an excellent double bassist. So he went to Ohio University for a year. He applied to audition at Juilliard. He went to Juilliard, auditioned, was accepted, awarded a full scholarship. And there you go, he's off to New York. And our mom was very nervous about sending her only son to New York, very nervous about it. I remember her just being very antsy, trying to figure out if she's done everything and put everything in order to make his visit and his transition and his time in New York and while he's getting educated in classical music. She wanted it to work for him, so she made a lot of sacrifices to make that happen. And then my brother was a guy that always dressed extremely nice. He always was very dapper, color coordinated, and I don't know why I remember this, but I remember one time he had on a pair of green slacks with a green sweater with a white stripe in it and green suede shoes. And boy, was he really sharp. And of course, I'm a little kid and I admire that in my brother, that he's so neat, and he was sort of a vain guy, you know, always in the mirror, brushing his hair. And when we went to pick him up one summer, I was very excited about it. I'm a young teenager, very excited about going to pick up my big brother, riding from Cleveland to New York to pick up his things. And then he came out of the apartment building, but he didn't come out dressed like he did in that green outfit. He came out with very tattered clothes on, a very worn sweater, plaid pants, believe it or not. And he had a look in his eye that I could still see right now. Very glazed. It's almost like he didn't blink. And I remember thinking that he was hurting. Maybe he was in pain. But it was different. It just wasn't the guy that we sent off to New York. This wasn't the same guy. And it made me feel very uncomfortable. This is the first recollection I have of my feelings about him being ill. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say to my big brother, who I always ran to for help. And we packed up the car, got in, and as embarrassed as I am to say, because I felt uncomfortable and because I didn't know what to say, I pretended to be asleep. So from New York back to Cleveland, which was the longest ride, he talked and he talked and he talked, and nothing was really in a set pattern. It was one conversation about this and the next conversation about that, just all over the place. And I remember sort of peeking up, looking at my mother, and the expression on her face was that of disbelief, pain. She didn't know what she was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. And we were with my stepfather, who was a very jovial guy. And he tried to keep it going, and he did a great job to get us back to Cleveland.